When you're watching a movie, the last thing you want is to feel that the people who made it think you're dumb. While most films treat their audience with the respect they deserve, sometimes a picture will come along that is so unbelievably stupid that it's hard to imagine how anyone thought it was a good idea. Now, this isn't a list about pictures that are bad per se. I mean, some of these did good reviews and have strong fan bases. It's just that there are elements of them that bugged people a little too much. Basically, this is a list about movies where there is a fundamental misunderstanding between creator and consumer. That relationship needs to be rock solid in order for a piece of fiction to work. So when it gets broken, bad things start to happen. And with that in mind, Madam Web. It only came out in February 2024, but Madam Web already has a reputation as being one of the dumbest big-name movies of all time. Starring Dakota Johnson as the titular Cassie Webb, who has the gift of precognition, the film pits a group of seemingly normal women against a vicious killer who is out to stop them from becoming superheroes in the future. If only she'd used her powers to see how bad this film would turn out to be. So much about Madam Web is a giant mess. The three characters Cassie is protecting, Julia, Anya, and Matty, are barely individuals, amounting more to what a bunch of 50-year-old men think teenagers are. Asking the audience to care about such husks of people is an insult to begin with, but then there's everything else. The dialogue is so expository that even a 7-year-old would feel patronised by it. The heroes are completely inept and realistically should have been killed several times over, and the plot is so uninspiring that it can't have taken any longer than 10 minutes to think of. It's no wonder that nobody really enjoyed it.
Modern Simpsons. When the first full-length Simpsons episode aired in 1989, nobody could have predicted America's favorite yellow folks would still be going 3.5 decades later. Not the showrunners, not the producers, no one really realized how big a hit they had on their hands until the show exploded in a sea of yellow and that delicious acidy liquid seeped into our goggled eyes. Now, the show has been going on for so long that the Simpson kids, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, would all now be older than their parents, Homer and Marge, in real time. The writers have tried to combat this issue with a sliding timeline, sorry for the trauma there, comics fans, which most Simpsons viewers have just accepted as the norm. For those of us who grew up on the show in its peak years, it's weird in a sort of remind you of your own creeping mortality kind of way. But in the words of Abe Simpson, it'll happen to you too. It's life, and The Simpsons would be pretty stale if it just restricted itself to satirical beats from 3 decades ago. Although I'm always down for more jokes at Bob Dole's expense. However, sometimes it goes a little bit weird. In 2008, as part of their 19th season, The Simpsons put out an episode called That 90s Show, which depicted a teenage Homer and Marge going through a rough patch in the mid to late 90s, even though there are dozens of episodes from this exact period where the couple are married with children. Like, come on, they're children of the 70s. I feel like that is just embedded into their DNA. That 90s show was the most blatant abuse of the show's fragile continuity, and while to that I would say, The Simpsons has never really been obsessive about that sort of thing, this was probably a jarring step too far. Also, the episode itself was pretty stinky, like a lot of modern Simpsons, which has lost a lot of its heart and humor with the jerk-assification of Homer, weird to save celebrity cameos, and a streamlined presentation at odds with the show's original charm. Is it harsh to say it's treating us all as if we're big old dummies? Maybe. And there are glimmers of the good stuff in the most recent seasons, but The Simpsons is still nowhere near as funny or as clever as it used to be.
Savages. Set in the shady world of Mexican drug cartels, 2012's Savages is an action thriller by acclaimed director Oliver Stone. Taylor Kitsch and Aaron Taylor Johnson played two small-time weed farmers who set out to rescue their girlfriend from some kidnappers. Yep, she is their collective girlfriend. Hey, no judgment here. There's plenty of fun to be had here with a strong cast, nice cinematography, and exciting action sequences, but one small detail left first-time viewers of Savages feeling deceived. After a gunfight featuring all 3 protagonists, they all lie mortally wounded on the floor waiting to die together. A touching scene that would have been a great ending if it weren't all a dream. Yes, this was all one big fake out and people were not happy. It's one thing to play with an an audience's expectations, but to deliver such a gut-wrench and then immediately reveal it was all a lie rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. It felt like a massive cop-out and completely shattered the trust between filmmaker and viewer. Honestly though, if the only controversy surrounding an Oliver Stone movie is how it ends, then it's done pretty well.
Once Upon a Time. Starring the likes of Ginnifer Goodwin, Jennifer Morrison, and about 700 other people, Once Upon a Time was a show set in a world where fairy tales exist in the real world. Like fables, only not as good. Regular folks rub shoulders with classic characters in this wholesome fantasy affair, including Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, Pinocchio, Captain Hook, and many, many more. For a long time, the show mainly drew from established folklore for its material, but as it went on, things began to change. In season 3, fans were introduced to Ariel from Disney's The Little Mermaid. In season 4, Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians turned up. And the same year, both Elsa and Anna from Frozen, which had only come out the year before, had guest roles. Frozen is based on a story by Hans Christian Andersen, but come on, these were definitely the Disney versions in the show. Part of the whole deal with Once Upon a Time is that it leaned into old folklore and literature. Having characters inspired by interpretations as old as 30 years ago just kind of cheapened the show. It was so obviously an attempt to cash in on a larger property's popularity, and while it's probably true a show like Once Upon a Time doesn't deserve that level of scrutiny, from where I've been sitting, it all seemed pretty cringe.
American Hustle. 2013's American Hustle, directed by allegedly not very nice man David O. Russell, is famous for receiving 10 nominations at the Oscars and not leaving the ceremony with a single award. It was sold as a dramatization of the FBI's abscam operation in the 1970s, which resulted in the downfall of several corrupt politicians. Not a bad premise for a movie, but sadly, viewers spent most of the runtime waiting for that historical nugget to actually become relevant. Most of the picture feels like one big distraction. If it's not the flamboyant costumes, many of which seem solely designed to show off either Amy Adams or Jennifer Lawrence's cleavage, it's the ridiculous accents, or the blaring soundtrack, or Christian Bale's comb-over to end all comb-overs. It almost feels like Russell didn't think his audience would care about the actual facts, so tried to blind them with bright colours instead. Somehow this play worked, and American Hustle was lauded by critics upon its release. But with the power of hindsight, opinions on it have faltered. Some have even called it the worst Best Picture nominee of all time, which is really saying something.
Glee. One of the original cast members and breakout stars of the all-singing, all-dancing show Glee was Rachel Berry, the talented yet slightly obnoxious student played by Lea Michele. For the longest time, Rachel would bang on about how all she wanted to do in life was perform on Broadway, to the point where, even when she graduated from William McKinley High School, the show followed her aspirations to make it on the big time. After an unsuccessful stint on TV, Rachel returns to Broadway in Glee's final season and gets the offer to star in a show. However, she chooses instead to take up a place at an arts college, which some viewers saw as character growth, whilst others thought it flew in the face of everything her character was about. You could say that she'd been burned by her previous experiences, but it doesn't cast Rachel in a great light that she gave up on her lifelong dream after a single stumble. In the eyes of many of Glee's fans, this was a decision Rachel would simply never make, big season finale or otherwise.
Knowing. Famously adored by renowned film critic Roger Ebert and hated by pretty much everyone else, 2009's Knowing is a sci-fi thriller starring Nicolas Cage as an astrophysicist whose son discovers a strange document at school. The paper, which contains a series of seemingly random numbers scrawled by a former student 50 years ago, is discovered to be able to predict certain tragedies. Cage's character decodes a warning that a mass extinction event is on the way, which leads him to try and get his family to safety. Whilst there may have been a hint of something in this idea, it got way too far-fetched for its own good. It was revealed that the numbers were sent by some unidentified alien beings as a way of determining who would be spared from Earth's destruction. At the end of the film, it is revealed that only children who have heard their whispers can leave the planet. So why bother with the numbers then? Just stick to the whispers. Also, the extinction event, a massive solar flare, is scientifically implausible, which completely undermines the film's sense of jeopardy. But at least Roger enjoyed himself.
The Powerpuff Girls Reboot. For kids of a certain generation, there was nothing more iconic than the Powerpuff Girls. The adventures of Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup were essential viewing between 1998 and 2005. So, when it was announced the show was being rebooted in 2016, fans who watched during their childhood got very excited. Alas, things fell apart very quickly. The Powerpuff Girls would not be getting a comeback on the level of what Samurai Jack got just a year later. By the way, that show kicks ass. Things got off to a bad start with the Powerpuff Girls reboot when it was announced that none of the girls' original voice actors would be returning. Even the show's creator, Craig McCracken, initially distanced himself from the reboot. The show itself was also plagued with animation errors, and its sense of humor was tied way too heavily to contemporary modern culture. When the OG show had been so timeless, this felt like a pretty awkward misstep. Safe to say that these Powerpuff Girls were not made of sugar, spice, and all things nice, but rather badness, disappointment, and
Spectre. Fans of history's best-dressed misogynist were highly hopeful for the franchise's 2015 offering, Spectre. This was the follow-up to the excellent Skyfall, which was also helmed by director Sam Mendes, and people couldn't wait to see what he'd do next. The answer? Not much. Spectre is thunderingly boring, a cardinal sin for the patron saint of cinema spectacle. Bond spends a lot of the movie tracking down Franz Oberhauser, later revealed to be his old enemy, Ernst Stavro Blofeld, and that quest is sadly not very interesting. However, when he finally meets his foe, things somehow get even worse. During a classic villain monologue, Blofeld reveals that after Bond's parents died when he was young, the family he came to live with was his. That makes Bond and Blofeld adoptive brothers, a twist nobody saw coming and, more importantly, nobody wanted. There have been plenty of retcons in the Bond series, but asking longtime fans to accept that these two characters were now related was a step too far. Blofeld would appear in the next series installment, No Time to Die, but thankfully only to get killed.
Archer. The whole "it was all a dream" writing trick has been used by movies and TV shows for as long as anyone can remember. Dallas? Anyone? Or maybe even Saint Elsewhere? Most of the time, it doesn't play well, as audiences usually don't respond well to being told everything they've sat through basically didn't count. For a modern take on this time-honored and crappy tradition, there's animated adult spy drama Archer. At least it used to be about spies. The show's 7th season ended with the main character of Sterling Archer going into a coma, where he would stay for the next 3 years. For the following 3 seasons, the action took place exclusively in Archer's mind, changing the genre from noir detective to action-adventure to science fiction. While this was a pretty neat way of keeping the show fresh, the longer these coma dreams went on, the more it felt like a pretty big waste of time. When Archer finally woke up at the end of season 10, it was almost like the previous 3 seasons just never even happened. That's a lot of pointless episodes.
Prometheus. When a group of scientists set out on a journey to discover the origins of mankind, they came face to face with a terrifying truth: that they're all idiots. Prometheus, Ridley Scott's 2012 offering and a loose prequel to his Alien universe, is set on a mysterious planet landed on by the hapless crew of the film's namesake craft. They set out to explore this new location, making dozens of basic mistakes in the process. Shortly after landing on this new world, the crew all take their helmets off. Even though they knew the air was breathable, this still made them susceptible to disease, sudden changes in environment, and, well, just about everything. People wander off for no reason, everybody loses track of everybody else, and the guy financing the expedition has no sense of urgency about him, even when things start to go wrong. Basically, Prometheus is one gaping logic hole after another, and viewers were not having it. A pretty film? Yes. A pretty stupid film? Also yes.
Roseanne. Oh, you thought Archer was bad? Oh boy, just wait till you get a load of this. Comedian Roseanne Barr, and we're being generous when we say comedian, starred in the sitcom Roseanne for 11 years between 1988 and 1997, becoming a TV comedy institution in the process. The show, which depicted life in a modern American working-class family, was well-liked by fans and critics across the board, scooping up awards and topping charts all the while. Plus, it had John Goodman, which is always a lovely bonus. The show initially ended after 9 seasons, with millions of viewers wondering how it was all gonna wrap up. The big reveal came in the final episode, where it turns out that the entirety of season 9 was a fictional story written by the lead character. Oh. Yeah, the ending to Roseanne is one of the most controversial in TV history, as viewers felt massively betrayed after being told that most of what they'd been watching was actually just a total falsehood. It was certainly an interesting idea, but was it really worth taking such a big risk in the final season of the show? One that ended up upsetting so many people? Then there was the 2018 reboot, which was a whole other mess.
Volcano. 1997 saw the release of two big volcano-themed movies within months of each other. Dante's Peak, which people liked, and Volcano, which people didn't. Volcano starts with an earthquake in Los Angeles, which forms a giant volcano under the city. It's up to some assorted eggheads to figure out what to do before it's too late. The sensible option would probably be to evacuate before molten hot magma kills millions of people. But nope, the scientists in this film waste a bunch of time poking around in the sewers before coming to that conclusion. Things get really silly when a plan is devised to use concrete from destroyed buildings to divert the lava flow away from populated areas. If you need someone to explain to you why that's not a feasible long-term solution, then you probably need to have a long lie down. By its very nature, Volcano is a stupid, overblown disaster movie, but it really stretched that genre to its limits. This was B-movie schlock on a $90 million budget, and anyone who watched it almost certainly lost brain cells.
Doctor Who. Much like The Simpsons, Doctor Who has been on the air for so long that it's impossible to keep track of what's actually canon anymore, especially when you throw time travel into the mix. The alien-bashing, TARDIS-crashing antics of Gallifrey's finest have contradicted themselves so many times over the years that there's really no point in trying to keep track of everything. But there are some concrete facts that the show has never messed with. Well, there were anyway. The 12th season of the revived show focused on the idea of a timeless child that was the key to the history of the Time Lord race. In the episode, The Timeless Children, it was revealed that the Doctor herself was this child, and thus the original Time Lord that all others of the species actually came from. This flew in the face of everything fans had previously been told: that the Doctor's first incarnation had been William Hartnell, that their regenerations were limited to 12, and that they were actually a lot older than first expected. Ultimately, it felt like a cheap reveal done to draw interest back to a foldering show, but it didn't really pay off. How I Met Your Mother. For 9 long years, fans of How I Met Your Mother tuned in every week to find out exactly that: how lead character Ted Mosby would find the woman of his dreams and the mother of his children. The identity of Ted Squeeze was revealed at the end of season 8, played by Kristen Milioti, although they wouldn't meet until the very last episode of the next season, which was the show's last. And they were together for about all of, I don't know, 20 minutes? Over the course of just one episode, the show speed rounds Ted and Tracy's entire relationship. They meet, fall in love, have kids, and then Tracy tragically dies with several minutes of runtime left. And how does the show spend those final minutes? By having Ted ask out Robin, the woman he'd been dating on and off for the entire series. Not only did this kind of go against the entire premise of the show, it was called How I Met Your Mother, for God's sake, but it backtracked on all the growth Ted and Robin had undergone as friends. An utterly catastrophic ending, and one people are still mad about all these years later.